Okay, Aaron, this one is going to be short because the book I read is only about 4 hours long on audio. I don't know how many pages it is in print. Uh, it says it's a novel, but it's more like a novella. Harriet, not gonna lie, I mostly read it because I'm familiar with Bob the Drag Queen's sense of humor and thought I would enjoy it for that alone. And it's a very simple story that I can very easily see being something that was originally thought of as a stage production. A very small, simple one, but it is called Live in Concert because it focuses heavily on the group making music together. It takes place in a world where historical figures and people from the past suddenly come back to life. There is no explanation for this. It simply serves as the setup for if we could talk to these people, what would they say? Another thing the book focuses on, rather than just putting the historical stories into modern language, the importance of the relationship between past, present, and future, specifically in the Black community. How everything has been a long chain of people working hard and improving so that their community, their family, their children can have better, and how even now people are still continuing that on, still striving. They are highly aware that everything they do is going to affect the future of their community, their families, and everyone who comes after them. The main story follows a washed-up music producer named Darnell, who has been contacted by Harriet Tubman and has no idea why she would want him of all people. It mostly focuses on humanizing these historical figures and the things they went through. Darnell sits down to talk to each of them, Harriet Tubman and the members of her band, other former slaves, and a Quaker abolitionist, and gets their perspective on what life was like for them, how they fought against slavery, what their experiences were like. Each member of the band has their own history to tell, and you can very easily see where it would work out into individualized music numbers for each of them, a little bit like Six the Musical, but not quite to that level. It does have a lot more of the heavy discussion parts that would need to be in dialogue form. Darnell even specifically states, oh, this is going to be a song on the album with particular scenes and characters. The audiobook actually includes two of the songs they discuss in the book as performed by Bob the Drag Queen at the end, and they're really catchy. I will say it's not very plot heavy. The main thread is pretty much just them talking, sharing their stories, and developing the album together. There is a little bit of a thread with Darnell trying to find his confidence again, getting back into the industry, and him working up to sharing his sexuality and his negative experiences with it with the rest of the group, particularly knowing that most of them are old-timey hardcore Christians. A lot of the different stories and interludes they go into feels like fun facts you would get from biographies or documentaries, usually correcting things that it would have been in the standard high school history book in the 90s or early 2000s. Things like Abraham Lincoln not being an abolitionist, things like Black people's opinions on Frederick Douglass at the time. One story they told that I definitely recognized from grade school because we had a picture book on it was the story of Ellen Carter and her husband, where she was light-skinned and pretended to be a man and had her husband pretend to be her slave so they could make it north while she was passing. I was very excited to see that one because I always loved that story as a kid, and I'm very glad to see it included. It goes into a lot of specific stories about Harriet or Minty's childhood and stories about her mother, her brother, who is also a character in the book. I'm not gonna go into all of them because, like I said, the book is pretty Opal, you wanna come in? I'm not gonna go into all the historical vignettes because, like I said, it's a really short book and you could easily hear them yourself. I will discuss more of Darnell's story, though. Watching Darnell struggle to be closeted and knowing how badly it was going to go for him was so bad and way too real. It was so much torture, I had to stop reading this and go read a book that had an actual torture scene in it as a cleanser. I was expecting the historical stories It'd be awful, but I was not expecting how hard Darnell's was to read. The book definitely gave me more appreciation for Harriet Tubman's mother. I said this seemed like the idea started as a musical, and honestly, I want to see a stage production of this. I want a full musical production of this with Bob the Drag Queen. Anybody in it, actually. I would love it. Please, please, Bob. I'm begging you, do it. If you want something short to read, I definitely recommend Harriet Tubman live in concert. And if it ever does get made into a stage production, I highly recommend watching it. Okay, Erin, see you in the next book. You too.